So the second important fundamental concept in economics, one that we will use in this class, is the idea of equilibrium. So let me just kind of define it formally, and then we'll work through some particular examples. So equilibrium really kind of has, I would say, two features to it that I could describe. One is what we just discussed, which is that in an equilibrium, each person or everyone that's in this particular situation is optimizing. So everyone optimizing, meaning everybody's making their best decision. So that we need to be true to have an equilibrium. And two, the equilibrium part of this is that no one has any incentive to change. And so you can imagine this idea of equilibrium, right? So a classic example of equilibrium would be in a traffic jam, right? So when is a traffic jam or traffic in general in equilibrium is when, let's say there's 3 lanes, if all 3 lanes are moving at roughly the same speed, right? So I'm not in equilibrium if the left lane is completely stopped, but the right lane is moving at full speed. So in that situation, I certainly have the incentive to change lanes. I can move from the left lane to the right lane and start moving. And so obviously people are going to make that change until the 2 lanes are moving at roughly the same speed, accounting for the fact that, some people may have to turn right or left as part of their individual optimization. So that's what we call equilibrium. So here's an example, right? Going back to this idea of lines. So we have, people are at the grocery store, and you encounter this all the time, right? This sort of juggling act of, which lane is going to move the fastest? Where do I go to get out of the grocery store as fast as possible? So, I show up, and, it's kind of how do I view the world, right? How do I use this to make decisions? So I look at the lines, and line A has 3 customers, and line B has 5 customers. Okay, so let's think about, what would I use to make my decision about which lane I should go in? And ultimately, I have to make some decision about the optimization and the equilibrium here, right? So I need to decide, is everyone behaving optimally? I'm going to assume, in some cases that they are. And then, is this equilibrium has something to do with the speed of the 2 lanes, right? So one way I could look at this is I could just assume that everyone has chosen the line at random. So if everybody chose the line at random, would this be an equilibrium? Why or why not? Well, if everyone just randomly walked into a line, I'm going to be standing there, and I'm going to look at the other line, and if it looks like it's moving faster and mine is moving slower, I'm going to switch lines, right? So if I choose the lines at random, it's not going to be an equilibrium because I'm not optimizing, and therefore I may have the incentive to switch. Now, scenario 2, if I say, all right, everybody in front of me is optimizing, are we in equilibrium? The answer would be yes, right? If everybody's making the best decision, I assume that they figured out which line was moving faster, then nobody should have an incentive to change lines. So what conclusions can I draw? Would be that line A moves slower per person than line B, right? If that wasn't true, if line A moved faster per person, then the line B customers would want to switch to line A. We wouldn't be in equilibrium. So just kind of highlighting, right, a simple observation in the world. I go into a grocery store. Depending on the assumptions I make about people's underlying behavior, I could draw very different conclusions about what is true between the 2 lines. So when I want to think about, let's say somebody in front of me just entered into a line, that's the most informative customer, right? So the first people in line didn't really have a decision to make. There was an open lane. The second people decided which cashier seems to be faster. And the very last person had the most information about what was happening, and I can get the most from their particular decision, right? So this is just, obviously it's a simple example, nothing serious, not like the ER question, but it gives me a good sense of how economics informs all of our daily decisions. And if I'm smart about economics, I can make a little bit more sense and hopefully make better decisions myself. So that is the concept of equilibrium. The next one, empiricism, we will cover in the next video.